It's time now to move on to the worship service, the lecturer today. And I'm very happy to be here with Jeff McIntyre. He's going to be our lecturer. I'd like to express the information that he shared with us. So Jeff joined the chapel on April 15th, 2018, and he's an active member, chapel member, and a supporter. He is retired military, former IT director of Bionetics Corporation, former business owner and substance abuse counselor, and he is currently now employed at a master center for addiction medicine, working primarily with people addicted to heroin and other opioids. He's married to Pam McIntyre, also a chapel member and retired English teacher, and they have 2 adult children. Russell, who is a business consultant for Deloitte, and Emma, who currently works for a solutions engineer for Oracle Corporation. Jeff perceives his life's purpose to be inspiring and raising the expansion of human consciousness and elimination of unnecessary human suffering. Amen to that. Jeff believes that freedom is the best and surest path for human advancement. So he has a quote: "Freedom is a manifestation of higher levels of consciousness. Dependency is a manifestation of the lower levels of consciousness." Amen. So I'm very happy to introduce Jeff and really am excited to hear what he has to share. He has so much wisdom, and all the other talks I've heard, I'm looking forward to more wisdom that he can share. So Jeff, you've got the floor.
Okay, there we go. Can you hear me now? Sorry. Yeah, I forgot that somebody else had to unmute me. Okay, so I'll get right into it because it's going to be hard to stay within the time limits here. Today I'm going to be talking about acceptance and letting go. And primarily about letting go, but these are 2 very simple concepts. And acceptance and acceptance and letting go are extraordinarily simple, but we are not. So human beings are complicated. So even though the principle is pretty simple, us implementing it in our lives is not simple at all. So I could probably talk for several hours on this. I'm not going to. But anyway, letting go, what we're really here to do is to learn that we can change. I'm going to plant a seed here with a saying from Sonia Riccati. Accept what is, let go of what was, and have faith in what will be. So the first thing I'm going to do is sort of just go through some definitions. The definition of acceptance, acceptance is to recognize as valid or correct. In other words, we're talking about accepting what is. And originally when I started to do this lesson, I was going to just do letting go, but I realized that you need to accept what truly is first and then let go. It really doesn't work any other way. So when I talk about acceptance here, we're talking about recognizing what actually is, not what should be. That's a judgment. Okay, when we talk about letting go, I'm talking about release or dismissing something from our consciousness, from our life. And I'm going to use a definition now that I took from a Psychology Today article. Okay, letting go is the gold ring of positive change, releasing us from chains of the past. Intuitively, to let go means relief, immediate relief, being unburdened, relaxing into, passing through suffering into peace and possibility. so we were, you know, one of the things that was just mentioned is that one of my missions in life is to relieve unnecessary suffering. Okay. And unnecessary suffering is suffering that we create. In other words, there's what the Buddha called the inevitable suffering of human existence, which means, you know, if I fall down and break my arm, it's going to hurt and I'm going to suffer. That's that kind of suffering. Or if I have a loss in life, you know, my mother grows old and dies, you know, there's some suffering involved in that. That's the inevitable suffering of human existence. However, a lot of the suffering we have in our lives is of our own making, and it's optional. We don't have to do it. You know, we do have to kind of come to a place where we believe that we've suffered enough and we need to change. And that's kind of a funny way of thinking, but this is the truth. Sometimes we create suffering in our lives because we think we deserve it. So that's one of the things we have to accept, is that we don't deserve it. We haven't. But anyway, one of the sayings, and there's going to be a lot of quotes in this lesson about from other people, because one of the things I realized as I researched this is that this is something that a lot of people have thought about and talked about in the past, and a lot of really wise, knowledgeable people have. So I've taken a bunch of their quotes and sort of inserted them into this lesson. So before I get to that, I kind of want to talk about why this is important. You know, this is a metaphysical church. Why is acceptance and letting go important to our spiritual well-being and our spiritual growth? Okay, so kind of the benefits of letting go. First of all, is to allow change, because if we're hanging on to, you know, attitudes, beliefs, situations, relationships, politics, people, attitudes, just plain obsessive thinking, which I can certainly get into. Possessions, you know, the old thing of Thoreau used to say that you know, people don't own things, things own people, you know. That's very true. Expectations, and you know, I heard this thing, was a John Kabat-Zinn thing that I listened to a couple of days ago. But he was talking about the expectations we have in life. And one of the things he talked about was marriage. We have these expectations of marriage, where it's going to be this loving bliss. And then, you know, after a month or two, you know, the bills come in, and you have to deal with just the realities of living life together as a team. And marriage often, or even maybe most of the time, is not what we expect it to be. So our expectations are things that can cause disappointment. You know, actually, I was taught one time, you know, some years ago, that every disappointment I ever had in my life was because I had expectations. And I've been looking for the exception since then, and I haven't found it yet. Okay, so one of the benefits of letting go is that we can change, we can learn, you know, so there's a certain freedom in that, you know. If we can learn to let go, you know, one of the things I say a lot, because it's true of me, is that the biggest barrier to learning is what I think I already know. So I have to be able to let go of those old things that I think I know in order to move on to something new. So one of the benefits is to become open-minded. Okay. Also, just peace of mind, you know, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this in a minute, about how, you know, well, let's talk about it right now. When we will not let go, and we will not accept reality as it is, we end up at war with reality. And that puts us into conflict with all kinds of situations, people, et cetera, in our lives, where we're trying to change the world to suit our expectations, beliefs, whatever. And that's really difficult. It's a lot of work to change the world. Okay. You know, it's interesting because Gandhi said, you know, be the change you want to see in the world, you know. And however, he wasn't telling us to change the world, even if our long-term intention is to change the world. And he definitely did. Here I am, 8,000 miles away and 100 years later talking about things that he said. So he actually changed the world. Okay. But what he taught us is be the change you want to see in the world. That means we need to change ourselves, not the world. If we change ourselves, the world will change too, maybe. Well, it will change even a little bit, because if you put a drop of water in the ocean, it moves the entire ocean just a little bit. So, and one of the things John Kabat-Zinn said, or John Kabat-Zinn, I always thought it was Zen. Anyway, it's actually Z-I-N-N. But anyway, one of the things he said is you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. And I kind of like that. So, so to continue, so the benefits of living our lives in acceptance, and that in acceptance, of course, is reality. And that, Lao Tzu said that let reality be reality. Let things flow naturally forward in whatever way they like. So that the idea of non-resistance. Being in resistance to something is, once again, is a lot of work. Being in acceptance of something is no work at all. Our goal here is to accept reality so we can live there. Okay. We will be much more effective if we stop trying to change the world into what we think it should be and accept what it is, even if our intention is to change the world. And I'm going to say that again because it's very good. Our goal is to accept reality so we can live there. We will be more effective if we can stop trying to change the world into what we think it should be and accept what it is, even if our intention is to change the world. So the truth is, and here's a quote from Steve Maraboli, the truth is, unless we let go, unless you forgive yourself, unless you forgive the situation, unless you realize that the situation is over, you cannot move forward. And that is so true. Forgiveness and letting go are very related to each other. They're not always exactly the same thing, but they're very related. In order to forgive, you need to let go. Okay. All right, so what are some of the barriers to us letting go? Okay. One more quote before I move to that. We must be willing to let go of life as we have planned it, so that we can have the life that is waiting for us. I like that. Okay, so some of the barriers, obviously, is attachment. Okay, and attachment can be, an attitude, a story. Our stories definitely trap us a lot of times. There was one quote I actually ran across that said, "Story is the eradication of the present moment," which is kind of true, because as I make up a story, and human beings are just story making machines. We just make stories up constantly. A lot of times about why things are the way they are, when we really don't know why things are the way they are, but we can't just accept them. And what I'm encouraging us to do in this particular lesson is to accept things the way they are, even if we don't know why that is. Just to simply accept them. And a lot of times when we talk about acceptance, when I hear other people talking about acceptance, I need to accept that person exactly like they are, perfect, like they're perfect the way they are right now. Okay, I would encourage you to accept them just the way they are, period. Leave out the judgment of what they should be or whether they're perfect or whatever. Okay, because the truth is, I really have no way of knowing any of that. But I do know the way they are, and to accept them right now just exactly the way they are, is the most compassionate thing I can ever do. Okay. That's been the goal in my life for a couple of decades now, is to simply, when people come into my life, to simply accept them exactly how they are, in perfect compassion. They don't need to change anything to be acceptable to me. Okay. So, all right. So, sometimes we make up stories that if I let go of this, the other people around me will think I don't care. So I'm trying to please other people. Expectations can be a barrier. Your expectation and the expectations of others, or what I think the other people's expectations are. Because what happens if I don't know what other people's expectations are, I assign them some of mine. Anyway, there's the if only what I call the if only syndrome. If only I lived in California, if only I had, if I'd married this person, if only I'd gone to college, if only, all those things that make the moment that I'm in unacceptable to me. Okay. If only I'd lived in the moment, I wouldn't have had to suffer. Anyway. And expectations, like I talked about, John was talking about expectations of marriage. We also have expectations of jobs. If I switch jobs, everything will be wonderful. If I have more money, everything would be wonderful. Situations. Comfort can be a big barrier. Even if I'm, standing hip deep in mud, if I'm used to that, then that's comfortable for me. And this is the reason people stay in really kind of what we would think would be unacceptable situations, abusive relationships or horrible jobs or whatever. But people stay in these things because they're comfortable with them, because that's what they're used to. So comfort can be a barrier. Uncertainty can be a barrier. Okay. In other words, if I hang on and hang on and hang on, I know what I'm going to get, even if it's suffering. So living in the moment is an act of faith, because I'm allowing life in as it is rather than as I would have it. And of course, there's fear. And fear, of course, is always the biggest one. Self-centered fear is really at the core of all of our foibles. But we have fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of loss. Obviously, we're letting go. Okay, so if we're letting go of something, we're actually losing. We're losing those beliefs. We're losing that situation. We're losing that relationship. We're losing the comfort of, I put politics in some of the things we have to let go of. Here's some of the things we have to let go of: beliefs, situations, relationships, politics, people, attitudes, obsessional thinking, possessions, and expectations. There's a comfort in being a Republican and having, a set of beliefs, or being a Democrat and having a set of beliefs that I don't have to really think about. I just accept them because I'm with that, Same with being a Catholic or a Baptist or a Buddhist, So those are some things we can let go in order to gain freedom. Here's a quote from I'm doing pretty good on time, actually. A quote from Osho, who was a Hindu teacher. The way of love is the way of no expectations. Love exists only when there is a total acceptance and no desire to change anything. Okay, and that's exactly what I was just saying. My goal is just to accept people as they are and love them just like they are right in this very moment. Here's a kind of another barrier, and this is a quote from Hermann Hesse. Some of us believe that holding on makes us strong. More often, it is letting go. And this is kind of my experience with holding on to things. And by the way, nothing ever leaves my life without claw marks all over it. I can be very possessive and obsessive. And So the actual act of holding on limits me. It limits my growth. It limits my self-expression. It limits who can be present in my life. It limits me in all kinds of ways, you know. And you know, at the beginning, you know, Sharon was reading that quote of freedom is a manifestation of the highest levels of consciousness. And you know, because when I accept and let go, I now have infinite possibilities in front of me, okay? Both to be led, you know, by my own consciousness, of course, by my conscience, to be led into things that I would never have gotten into, being limited by my expectations and what I was holding on to, but also to use the God-given talents that I have this lifetime to be fully expressed. You know, a lot of times what we hold on to keeps us from moving into what we should be doing and should be expressing, and how, you know, first we gain spiritual consciousness and then we express it in the human realm. And there's lots and lots of ways there's almost an infinite number of ways to do that. And we are most creative when we're not limited by the things we hold on to. You know, Eckhart Tolle also said that you know, sometimes letting go is a much greater power, is an act of much greater power than defending or hanging on. And that's a good point. A lot of times me hanging on, when I feel defensive, it's always because I'm hanging on to something. One spiritual teacher of mine once said that there's only one thing we ever defend ourselves against, and that's the truth. and that was 30 some years ago, and I've been looking for the exception and still haven't found it. So whenever I'm feeling defensive, I need to look at what truth I'm trying to avoid. Okay? You know, like I said before, you know, letting go is very much like forgiveness. And by the way, forgiveness ends the war. I'll say that again, forgiveness ends the war. Okay? You know, Byron Katie said, you know, there are only two ways to be. One is at war with reality, and the other is peace. Acceptance and letting go is the road to peace. I invite you to join me on it. Thank you very much.